Well, the jobs for MLC, of course, on the political agenda at the minute, and quite a few names are coming forward. One of those we're talking to now. Joining us is Tanya Humbles. Tanya, obviously a well-known journalist at Manx Radio, and this is a path other journalists have gone down. But I want to, of course, first of all, know exactly what made you decide you want to stand as an MLC.
Well, firstly, I suppose, I deal with an awful lot of similar issues that an MLC might come across day to day working in the newsroom. There's an awful lot that goes on the Isle of Man, and we pick up on pretty much every issue that crops up. But what made me want to stand was that, you spend an awful lot of time on some stories, and you'll know that well enough, Paul. Like you do a lot of research, you look into subject matter that in such a great depth of detail, and you report on it. You spend the quality of time, you get it out on the radio, or you'll know from your history in radio as well. You get it out on the radio. The next day, it's gone. You work on a different subject matter. You put the same amount of effort into it, the same level of detail into it. I suppose there's an element of not feeling like you're not making enough of a difference at times, and that's kind of where I came from with looking at standing. I mean, I've had a couple of people that have talked to me about it in the House of Keys. They've mentioned it to me and said, "Oh, would you consider?" And I probably up until maybe at the start of this month would have said, or perhaps maybe, but at the start of this month I had a similar conversation and decided actually that the role was sort of perfect for me and where I want to go and what I want to do, because I feel like I could actually make a difference in there, scrutinising, as opposed to scrutinising in the newsroom.
Well, the question that, of course, on many people's minds is always like, why don't you want to stand, therefore, as an MHK, get the public vote, rather than just the members of the House of Keys to vote for you? So, why have you gone for this step and not waited for a by-election or the actual next general election?
It's a fair question, and it's a question that also the MHKs have been asking me as I've been talking to them over the course of the last couple of weeks. And I wouldn't rule it out down the line in the future, but at the moment this is where my skill base lies. So I have studied, to sort of master's degree standard in journalism and scrutiny, and that's kind of where my skill base is, and also where I feel like my strengths are. So going into the House of Keys would be almost a completely different type of job for me. It would be a world away from what I've been doing in the past, what I've been doing at Manx Radio, for example, and 3FM before that, and with publications across the island as well before that. It would be an entirely different job role, I feel, than the one that I'm best suited to, which would be in MHK.
And what happens at the moment? Because obviously you're a journalist at Manx Radio. Are you on gardening leave, or what are you doing? Because obviously you have to stand back, I'm guessing, from being on the radio at the minute.
Yes. I had a discussion with management about it about maybe 3 weeks ago, and said that I told them that I was quite passionate about the idea of standing, and I wanted to stand. And we came to the agreement that the best way would be to keep me useful at Manx Radio, because I would literally climb the walls at home. I could not stand being on gardening leave. I really do love being busy, and I don't think that I could handle not being busy and being in the house. So what I'm doing is I'm up in the archive room at the moment, digitising all Manx Radio's tapes, all of the archive, digitising that, of which some of your tapes have cropped up, Paul. It's been quite interesting listening to you back in the
yes, I am a relic. Thank you for pointing that out. You bring with you youth, I think, and obviously being a female, I almost dread to say that, but it does seem that there's quite a call this time to even up the balance up there. Would you accept that is in your favour?
I would, and I would say that they're really quality female candidates as well. There are quality male candidates. I believe that Alistair Ramsey will be standing as well, who's been in the Cabinet Office for a long time, up until the back end of last year. And, I don't think it's anything to signify that, a man wouldn't do just as good a job as a woman. But there are a good deal of female candidates standing this time around. I think it's kind of, if you hark back to the general election and having the 5 women that went in at the general election, I think it kind of opened things up for people seeing that change in the House of Keys in this new administration.
What's your take on the Liz Vane report? I mean, do you see a future for the MLCs in Tynwald?
Absolutely. I think that government does need to be scrutinised, and I do feel that that LegCo has its place. It does. I mean, are you asking me what I think of the Liz Vane report? Because that's quite an in-depth subject matter. We'll be here for a very long time if that's the case. Do
you see, at some point then you voting yourself out of a job almost? Then I mean, let's take that one. I mean, do you see MLCs as a revising chamber and a future for them?
I see a future for LegCo, yes. Having worked in the newsroom, I think before I was a sort of journalist in a newsroom on the Isle of Man, I would have perhaps seen the Legislative Council as something quite different to what I see it now. But I do see it functioning, I do see it working. I don't see it working in the same way as it has done in the past. I think that a lot of the reforms that are coming through at the moment, some that have already happened, I think they were absolutely necessary. I think they were needed. And it really is starting to look like a body that can work into the future alongside the House of Keys, but also into scrutinising it as well. I think that there is a need for scrutiny, and there always will be.
Do you see it as a full-time job, or will you be looking to keep in journalism?
No. I absolutely see this as a full-time job. I see this as more than a full-time job, actually. I mean, I work at Manx Radio. You do end up, because it's vocational, and it is very vocational. Working as a journalist will always be vocational, as well. You'll know, it's something that you're passionate about, something that you really want to do, something that you dedicate yourself to. And I think that the job as an MLC is very much like that. You will dedicate yourself to it, and you will give as much time, energy as you possibly can in ensuring that you get the job done, and you get the job done right.
Okay.
I do see it as a full-time job. I see it as perhaps more than a full-time job. When I say more than a full-time job, what I mean is that it is a 24/7 job.
But it's over £50,000 a year, which is quite nice, isn't it?
It's a lot of money. I have my own personal opinions on how much Legislative Council members perhaps should be paid, and I don't necessarily believe that they should be paid to the same level as the MHK, because the MHK does have an awful lot to do in relation to constituency matters as well. So I do have my own personal views on that, and I'm sure that there will be a wage review in future as well. It's already in the planning. So
okay, well, you've been proposed by Claire Betson, I believe, and who are your other seconders and supporters? I'm not sure. Am I allowed to say that? Yeah,
well, I can say Claire Betson is proposing me. I can say that David Ashford is seconding me.
Right.
I have a number of supporters in the House of Keys.
Sorry, the two that you have to get signed up for, not every individual person that's going to vote for you. I meant you have to have Laurie Hooper has been very, very supportive, and also Jeffrey Boot and Ray Harmer. Right. So,
but I wouldn't want to
at the time of recording this, because we're holding these back obviously until the near the day, there's an amazing amount of people, as I said, something like 15, 16, it moves. Some of them actually coming off the list now. Are you definitely staying on, and are you definitely seeing that there's a chance, or I mean, which way does it work for you, having more people standing or less? What do you think?
I think that it'll probably, my prediction would be that it'll probably sort of hit maybe around 11, 12. At the moment we're standing at 16, but not all have got their proposal and second as of yet.
It's fluid, isn't it? But you're determined you're staying with it, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. 100% in. And
if you don't get in, will you look to stand again next time round, or will you look for other political routes? Where's your future lie?
Well, at the moment, I'll obviously be going back into the Manx Radio newsroom if I don't get into LegCo. But I would love to be able to get into politics. I've always had a very healthy interest in politics, quite a young age. I was quite nerdy like that. But I would probably attempt to get back into LegCo again. In the future, I don't know what will happen. Probably not for the next general election, but down the line, perhaps I will stand for the House of Keys if my feeling changes. I mean, we're fluid, aren't we, as human beings? So we tend to, maybe I will go back to that. Maybe I will stand in the future. But for now, the Legislative Council seems like the more appropriate route for me and for my experience, and also where my passions would probably lie.
Well, just to finish, I would say you've got youth on your side as well.
I don't know if it's on my side. I would say that youth can sometimes be seen as a disadvantage. I personally, I think that I have an awful lot of life experience behind me, having lived in a variety of different countries and having had an interesting life, I suppose, up until this point. I would like to, I suppose, say that age doesn't always signify the level of capability, and I will say that for other candidates that are perhaps younger than me that could be standing as well, without naming names. I think that ability is what needs to be judged, as opposed to the age of a person, the sex of a person, the race of a person. Okay. Yes, I suppose it is on my side. Also, it's not.
We'll see what happens. We've all got vision now of you being banished to the bowels of Manx Radio, digitising these old tapes of Paul Moulton.
Yeah, Harry Potter in her cupboard. Or rather Mrs. Hubbard. I'm looking after it for Chris Williams, who uses it perhaps the most over at Manx Radio alongside John Moss. So it's very interesting. I am on my own in there. I have my desk set up in there, and I'm refraining from going downstairs to the first floor, except to go and grab myself a coffee. I'm keeping myself well away from MHKs, because I would like to see other candidates perhaps have the same the same opportunities in talking to MHKs as I would, because it needs to be a level playing field. Protects Manx Radio, myself, and the other candidates, and it gives them the same opportunities.